There are breakups that don't leave behind two suffering adults, but leave a man and a child looking at each other in an empty house. This journey begins at the moment I understood I was no longer allowed to collapse. Episode 1. The day she walked out of the house with her suitcase. I didn't hold her back. Not because I was strong, but because I was so exhausted that I had no strength left to hold anyone. The door closed. The house went silent. I stood in the middle of the living room, my child sleeping on the sofa, his hand still gripping the edge of my shirt as if afraid I would disappear too. I didn't cry right away. I just felt my chest go hollow, as if someone had just sucked all the air out of the room. In that moment, I understood. Divorce doesn't end with a signature. It begins on a morning when you have to make the formula yourself, change the diapers yourself, carry the child to sleep yourself, while you, yourself, don't even know where your life is headed. I looked at my child for a long time. He didn't know what had just happened. He only knew I was the only one left. And from that moment, I was no longer just a broken man. I became a single father, without any preparation. Episode 2. No one taught me how to be a father alone. I learned by being wrong. Wrong many times. There were nights he had a fever. I trembled while searching for symptoms on my phone. There were mornings I dropped him off late at school. I apologized to the teacher in a voice exhausted to the bone. I worked during the day. At night, I did laundry, cooked, and cleaned. Sometimes I sat down on the kitchen floor, back against the fridge, asking myself, what am I living for? Friends invited me out. I refused. The invitations gradually vanished. My world shrank, until it was just his school schedule and bedtime every night. Sometimes I felt jealous of men who got to be fathers, with a wife still by their side. I felt myself aging very fast. But every time he wrapped his arms around my neck and whispered, "Dad, please don't go work far away," I didn't dare to be weak anymore. Episode 3. One day I realized I wasn't teaching him how to grow up. We were growing up together. He learned to read letters. I learned patience. He learned to say sorry. I learned how to forgive myself. There were nights we lay next to each other, lights out, listening to the steady rhythm of breathing. I thought about the broken marriage. There was no more resentment, only a very strange feeling. Gratitude because I still have him. I didn't become a successful man, in the way people usually say, but I became the person my child could call Dad, without feeling anything was missing. I matured late, very late, after the breakup, after the loss, after staying long enough. And if I had to choose again, I would still stay. Episode 4. One afternoon, he came home from school, put his backpack on the table, and asked me softly, "Dad, back then, were you sad?" I stood frozen. Not because the question was hard, but because I had never allowed myself to answer it. Throughout those years, I only focused on survival, making sure he had enough to eat, making sure he didn't feel a void, making sure this house didn't become too silent. I was used to pushing myself aside, so used to it that I forgot I was also a human being, with emotions, hurts, and fatigue. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat alone for a long time. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to remember the things that broke. I didn't cry. It just felt heavy. Heavy as if someone had placed all my memories back onto my chest. I realized one thing. I had been a very good father, but I had neglected myself for far too long. And perhaps it's time I learn how to keep living, not just for my child. Episode 5. The day he stood on the graduation stage. I sat in the back row. No flowers, no big gifts, just two hands clapping together, slightly trembling. I looked at him for a long time. Suddenly I realized the child who once slept on the sofa years ago was now nearly as tall as I am. He looked down to find me. That look made me bow my head quickly. Not out of sadness, but because if I looked any longer, I wouldn't be able to keep my composure. I didn't give him a complete family. No mother at home every night. No meals filled with the sound of laughter. But I was there. Every morning. Every time he was sick. Every night he was afraid. I didn't teach him with words. I just lived beside him. Silently. Persistently. Staying. Maybe my child will grow up with a few empty spaces in his heart. But I believe he knows what responsibility is. He knows what it means not to abandon the ones you love. I matured late. After the breakup. After life took a different turn. But if someone asks me if I regret it, I will answer very softly. No. Because I was there. We're more than just viewers, we're companions. Subscribe so we don't lose touch.